change.org, presenting Telling the Right Story for Your Online Campaign. Now we're set to begin. We'll be recording this webinar starting now, and we'll be making that available to you along with the slides with the link after the webinar. Tech Tuesday webinars are brought to you by Nonprofit Webinars, which in addition to this Tech Tuesday series offers a Wednesday webinar series and provides fully customized webinar production and hosting services for other organizations. And CJW Consulting and Services, providing software and technology-related training, consulting, and services to nonprofit organizations and by our presenters who offer their expertise to you freely through these webinars. Please consider contacting them whenever you are looking for consulting services. Nonprofit Webinars is a project of For Good, a next-generation nonprofit collaboration platform launching soon. For Good brings together free online training with nonprofit webinars, knowledge sharing with ID Encore, vendor and consulting listings with Nonprofit Direct, and much, much more. Now let me introduce our presenter. Named Outstanding Professional of the Year by the Association of Fundraising Professionals, Claire Aspera teaches the CFRE course that certifies professional fundraisers, writes for Windmill Marketing on social media for nonprofits, and is a presenter for Next Level Nonprofits. Her blog was named Top Fundraising Blog of 2013 by Fundraising Success. She is a founder and principal of Clarification Nonprofit Consulting. Take it away, Claire.
Thank you so much, Jamie, and welcome to everybody. Good afternoon. I want to say we've got a lot of material to cover today, so I'm going to go pretty fast. And if there isn't time for all of your questions, I really am willing to answer them afterwards, so feel free to contact me directly. You can get my contact information on my blog, Clarification, spelled with an A, like my name. So we're in a new era, and I am guessing that many of you have dipped your toes in the social media waters and are wondering why you aren't reaching more people or why you're not raising more money. Or there's some of you maybe who haven't begun yet, and maybe you haven't really considered seriously what social media can help you to achieve, or what not using social media might make it impossible for you to achieve in today's marketplace. So we're going to be exploring why just putting up a page and sporadically trying to capture likes and follows is just not cutting it anymore. But I also want to say that today's webinar should be a no panic zone for you. You don't need to be present on every platform. It's really a lot about common sense. It's just remarkable how common sense a lot of this is. You want to find the right platform for you and for your audiences, and you want to do it strategically and holistically, integrating it with all of your other strategies. Otherwise, you are being kind of foolish, and I say you've got a pretend social media plan. So no more tiptoeing around the elephant in the room. Your prospects are already here, and I kind of think of it like the first time I started out on eBay, I suddenly went, whoa, like this is the world's largest antiques mall. Like I don't have to go into one little store where they've got one little vase like what I'm looking for. There's hundreds of them and thousands of them here. And in a way, social media is like that. These people are there. They're empowered to have real-time conversations with you, but they want to do it on their own terms. They want you to engage with them in a way that's interesting to them, and we're going to be talking about that a lot today. But what you really want to do is get in there in the room and listen to them. Jeff Bezos of Amazon said, your brand is what they say about you when you're not in the room. So you want to be there. Social media was really made for cause publicity. It really lets folks spread the word about things that they care about. So you want to be there. And it's been called Generation C, which stands for Generation Connected. And what it really means is it's everybody. It cuts across demographic, psychographic lines. it's not just people who are young or people who are old. It's everybody who's on there having access to all of this digital technology. I really would like you just to forget the word media, in fact, because I think at some point in the not too distant future, we're going to think it's pretty quaint that we called it social media, because it's really about the social. That is the way that people become aware. Social is the way that we get our needs met. Social is the way that we learn more. And social is really the ties that bind us. So, this is my little mnemonic for you to remember the 6 things that you want to do in getting your strategy ready. And before we get to this, I just remembered I want to kind of figure out, since I've got so much to cover, I want to cover the right stuff. So I want to figure out where you are right now with your social media strategy. So Jamie, if we could launch the first poll now, that would be great. Hello? Oh.
Everyone, the first poll is us. Claire, as the presenter, you can't see it, but everybody else can see it, and they've started giving us their responses. So how does your boss feel about social media for your nonprofit? Select 1. Think social media is a fad. Okay to do it as long as she doesn't need to be involved. We should do more of it because it's free. Fully supports it. Knows we need to hire someone to do it. And then we'll close the poll. We have about 75% of the audience voting. All right. So we have about 80% of you have voted in our poll. So I'll be closing the poll and showing everyone the results. So it looks like, fortunately, only 1% of you have responded that your boss thinks that social media is a fad. 44% have said that your boss thinks that you should do more of it because it's free. And we're about split, 26% and 29%. Okay to do it as long as she doesn't need to be involved, and then 29% fully supports and knows we need to hire someone to do it.
Wow, that's great. That's much better than I was anticipating, because 6 months ago I was hearing a lot of social media as a fad. So, all right, so hopping on board sounds like a lot of you understand that you really need to do this. You know, it's really not hip or cool to wing it when it comes to your marketing or your fundraising strategy, and that's what social media is all about. Securing internal support is a really big deal for lots of people, and I'm going to say that most of you seem to have that, so we'll talk about that really briefly. Probably what you want to talk about more is the plan, developing the social roadmap that's going to integrate with your other marketing and fundraising strategies, how to get some action, how to go beyond just likes and follows to really inspire the kind of value for value exchanges that are going to be meaningful in helping you achieve your goals, what kind of resources you need that will be the preconditions to your success, and then how do you measure your return? I say return on interesting, and we'll talk more about why that's a meaningful measure of ROI for social media. So hopping on board, 41% of nonprofits attribute their social media success to having developed a detailed social media strategy. So again, we want to be doing a lot of planning so that this is not just a catch as catch can, throwing all the spaghetti up on the wall and seeing what sticks strategy. 47% of Americans learn about causes via social media, so you got to be there. This is saying that a lot of the people who learn about nonprofits on the social web are inspired to engage because of the storytelling you're doing there, which is why having a really robust content strategy is important, and we think we'll talk about that more. And this is really interesting to me. More than half the people who engaged with causes on social media were inspired to take further action, and 59% of them donated money. So I find that very encouraging. People are giving more on social media, and that's also an encouraging trend. So how do you get the buy-in from the top that you need? We know that people fear to go where no one has gone before. So you've got to kind of let your powers that be know that they're not alone here. Everybody's doing it. It's really a bread and butter strategy these days. And one of the ways that, well, first of all, one of the reasons you've got to get the buy-in from the top is because they hold the purse strings and they set the strategy. And you can't count on a grassroots effort. And a lot of places, social media is something that just sort of sprouted up because there were a few folks there who liked it and they advocated it. But it's not yet really internalized as critically important to your fundraising and marketing goals. It's sort of something that people do on the side. So that doesn't really work. So you do need to persuade the powers that be that this is something that is important institution-wide. And I find the best way to persuade is to drip data, not to just suddenly say, oh, Foursquare, Tumblr, Reddit, we got to be there, it's really important, because their eyes will roll back in their heads and they're just not going to listen to you. But the best few ways are to find solid campaigns that you admire, call them up, and do a research interview with them and say, what are you doing? How's it working? Are you getting, real engagement from this? Are folks signing your petitions online? Are they coming to events? I mean, if all they say is, oh yeah, we've got, we had 100 likes last year and this year we have 1,000 likes, that's not really proof for me, if I'm an ED, that this is a valuable thing to do. But if they're getting the kind of engagement that is going to build long-lasting relationships over time, I want to hear that. You can also share articles and case studies, and I have I'm calling a Hop on Board social media resource guide that you will get a link to at the end. It's 15 pages of tips and tools and resources. It's free, so I encourage you to look at that. There's a lot there that you can use. And the other thing I really like to do is pair people with folks they respect. So if there's an ED or a marketing director or a development director at some other organization that your leadership respects and is already on board, see if you can get the two of them together for coffee. That has worked for me more than once. And then I'm just going to say we do have a little bit of a boomer problem in our society. I am a boomer, so I know what it's like, and many of us aren't coping very well with technology. And I've had so many people who are boomers say to me, I'm just not going to learn how to do this stuff. I'm not going to text. I'm not going to tweet. I think it's more important to meet people face-to-face, and doggone it, that's what I'm going to do. Well, of course, meeting people face-to-face is important, but if you've got a kid that only text messages you and that's the only way that they communicate with you, if you won't do it, you're not going to really be able to engage with them. So the best advice I can offer is to gently encourage embracing a change and have fun with it. You have to play with it. That's how we learn. That's how we learned as kids. So you want to try to move social front and center in your organization. One great way is to build a social task force that cuts across departments. And there is a great book by Beth Cantor and Katie Payne who wrote The Network Nonprofit, which is in my resource guide. And it talks about how in a network nonprofit, everyone gives and everyone gets. You have a lot of interesting material. You have a lot of content that your constituents would be really interested in if you could only share them. But if you're only sitting with your marketing and your development staff, you're not learning about a lot of that stuff, at least not on a regular basis. And your other departments are thinking that this is just an advertising thing, and it has nothing to do with them. So what you want to do is frame it not so much as marketing or technology, but get them all together and say, hey, what's the most effective strategy we have for letting folks know about what we do or for getting folks to get involved in our programs? And chances are, after you do this for a while, you're going to find out that the most effective strategy people come up with is word of mouth. And I've done this by having a receptionist just track for a week saying, how did you hear about us? And 50% is usually word of mouth. if you can persuade people that social media is virtual word of mouth, there it is on a silver platter for you, your tried and true most effective form of marketing. Why not be there? So you're wanting to sort of lead with relationship building and not with technology. The one thing that you really want to avoid is silos. And this is a really big problem with nonprofits. Social media is being done in one department, marketing, development, IT, wherever it is. And your constituents don't see you as internal departments. They see only one organization. And so if they send a message to you, they expect that they can get a response from anyone. So everybody has to know how to connect with folks via today's channels. So it's a really great idea to get together as a group and source the wisdom of your internal crowd to sort of develop some clarity on all the potential riches that your organization has to offer potential supporters, and transform the mindset from buying ad space to earning the hearts of people. You're not a spinner of pitches. This is not a spinning thing. You don't do this to folks, you do it for them. So we're ready to hop on board now and build our plan. And if I could say one thing to you, it would be stop the random acts of marketing. So many of our social media programs, since they did sort of just sprout up, are things kind of like where they're taped together with chewing gum. And, you know, you started to count Facebook friends, and then you counted Twitter followers, and the more that these things grew, the more you patted yourself on the back. I'm sorry, but I would like to encourage you to stop patting yourself on the back, because you're going for kind of an instant gratification of checking things off your to-do list. But these are not the things that are going to give you real results that are going to sustain your organization for the long term. So just going for the buzz so that you can go into a meeting and go, hey, we got this many likes last month. Nobody's buzzing about how many likes you have except for you. You really want them to be buzzing about this great tip sheet that you just shared with them about how to keep their parents safe, or this really interesting information that's, you know, coming out of new research that they didn't know about. It's really what's in it for them. So as tempting as it is to just dive in and put up a page and start posting, don't do that. You want to really honestly assess your goals and how social media's really unique strength of being able to encourage dialogue can help you to further your goals. You know, I always quote Lewis Carroll, who said, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. You've got to know where you're going. You've got to know what you want people to do. So I want to launch a poll now here and see how, when it comes to your social media plan, what your philosophy most resembles. Jamie?
Pardon, Claire, I had mute on. So
were you able to hear?
Right now? Yes, my apologies.
Yes.
I just had a mute on so that you couldn't hear me. All right, so everyone, our poll is currently up. Our social media plan philosophy most resembles. Please select one. I'll think about that tomorrow. Our first priority is a new website. Website is okay, trying to get more email addresses. We rock our website and email, focusing now on new channels. We've about a third of you have voted, and I will close the poll when we have 75% of the votes in, and then I will show everyone the results. Fantastic. Over 75% of you have voted, so let's see the results. It looks like 40% of you say that your website is okay and you're trying to get more email addresses. 26% say that you lost your website and your email and you're focusing on new channels now. 20% say that your first priority is a new website. And 13% say that you'll think about it tomorrow. Thank you all for responding.
Okay, well that's good. I mean, it is all over the map, but a lot of you are happy with your website and you're trying to build up your mailing list, which is a really important thing. And I'm happy that a quarter of you think you rock your website and you're trying to get new channels. So that's really great. The other thing is I didn't launch a poll earlier, but I'd really like to know where social media resides in your organization. So Jamie, if we could launch the poll number 2 now, that would be really helpful too.
Great, Claire. We have poll number 2 up, which is now poll number 3. Social media responsibility at my nonprofit resides, and please select 1, with marketing, with development, with IT, with volunteers, interns, or whoever on staff has time, or is effectively shared between more than one department. So we have about half of you have voted now, and once we get 75% of the audience voting, I will close the poll and share the results with everyone. Okay, great. We have almost 80% of our audience has voted, so let's share the results and see what you said. We have over a third of respondents say that social media responsibility at your nonprofit resides with marketing. Slightly less than a third say that it resides with volunteers, interns, or whoever on staff has time. 17% say that it is effectively shared between more than one department. 14% say that that responsibility resides with the development department, and 4% with IT. Well, thank you for your responses.
Okay, well that's really, really interesting. I mean, I think it's great, those few of you who have it integrated, and I'm a huge believer in integrating marketing and development, and that's a topic unto itself, but I do think it's really potentially going to hurt you if you have it in only one place. So even if marketing is in charge of launching the stuff, I do think having some kind of a cross-departmental social task force so that all of you are involved in figuring out why are we doing this, what are we hoping that our constituents are going to do, is a really, really important thing to do. And I know a lot of times you think, oh, we just don't have time for that. We don't have time for more meetings. We don't have time for planning. That's really a luxury. But really, you can't afford not to plan, because it's the only way that you can really enact a strategy on relatively a shoestring budget, because I know that a lot of your leadership thinks that this social media stuff is free, and you're adding it on to stuff that you're already doing. So it's very important that what you are doing is done smart and it's worth your effort. And one of the first things that you have to do is understand who your market is. So I've got this little ad here of these personas, of the different potential constituents that you could be targeting your social media strategy towards. And it's very, very important that you know who you're talking to. And when I say use personas, this again is something that we could develop a whole workshop to. I would encourage you to do some persona exercises at your place of work. I do have worksheets that you can download in my guide that shows you how to do this. But essentially, you want to picture who you're writing to. You don't want to just randomly put out a post. I really hope none of you are putting out posts that just say, hey, we're on Facebook, or like us on Facebook, or retweet us. You want to know, like, hey, this PC guy, well, he's really interested in this sort of stuff, and this Mac guy, he's really interested in this sort of stuff, or Jane really likes to save the whales, whereas Joe is interested in orangutans. And so these people all have a kind of different personality. What you want to do is pick your 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 most common personas, give them names, really think about them, and that's who you want to write your blog posts and your tweets and your posts for. Think about, would they open these? Would this be interesting to them? What's in it for them? And then you also want to understand your own persona. You want to do some exercises with yourself. And one of the fun ways to do this is just a tried and true marketing strategy of things like, if our organization was a car, what kind of car would it be? If it was a food, what kind of food would it be? You know, are you a Volvo, which is safe and reliable, or are you a Maserati, which is kind of racy and sexy? And that will influence how you communicate with your constituents. You want to have a style that is authentic, that aligns with their styles, because that's how you make a match and build a relationship with people. So, next thing is building a content strategy. This is a huge topic, and this is not a building a content strategy workshop per se. But I've tried to smush a ton of stuff into this slide because I think that this is one of the most important things that you need to do. First, what are your promotion strategies? To keep yourself from going crazy, I say start with a blog, build your email, and then start spreading out to your social channels. If you see on this slide, blogs, 98% of people trust the information and advice they get from blogs, much more than some of the other social media channels. Your blog is right on your website. Some people are even getting rid of websites and having blogs just be their website. And what's really good about a blog is that you can put rich content there and post new stuff over and over and over again, so it keeps people coming back to you frequently, as opposed to a website where people might go once or twice, but they just really don't go very often. And Google search engines like blogs because they have fresh content. And if you want to see a whole webinar on blog strategy, there's a free download you can get from my clarification website. Start small. You want to grow slow and steady. Again, I can't say this too much. You don't want to just put a bunch of profiles up there and then have them be passive. And by passive, I mean anything that you don't have a consistent, planned schedule of engaging with. So your blog or your website is going to be the home for your message as you build your content strategy, and then you're going to take it out to email, which is the #1 way that folks get information online, and it's how your message really gets heard. Once you've done that, you can take it out to 1 channel, 2 channels, whatever seems to make the most sense for you. In developing a content strategy, you need to schedule specific time to produce that content. You can't just all of a sudden on Thursday go, oh my gosh, it's time to put something on Facebook. What should I do? Because you're not going to have engaging content, and you're not going to have desired action responses that make any sense for either your constituent or you. It's going to just be too random. The type of content that you're looking for is what I call RCA content. When you remember that old RCA Victrola, it was very transporting. People listened to the music, they engaged with it, it got them up dancing around. You want relatable content. That again goes back to your audience research. What do they care about? When they open this post or this tweet, are they going to look at it and go, oh yeah, I'm going to click on that, that sounds really interesting. You want it to be conversational. You don't want to just be broadcasting and saying, here's the latest statistics. We're now serving 70,000 people. That's not conversational. You want to pose questions. What do you think? And what's your favorite way of doing this? And you want it to be actionable. So put out there what you want people to do. Even if it's just, please retweet this. More people will retweet tweets where you say please retweet than anything else. But if they do retweet you, don't leave them hanging there. Respond to them. That's how, again, how you're going to be building a dialogue with people. And why I'm saying that this is a no panic zone is chances are you've got a lot of this stuff already. You've got, you know, email, you've got a website or blog. I really encourage you to start a blog. And you're up on some of the social channels already. You're just wanting to do this in a much more planful way. Your blog, your website are not glorified brochures. They're much, much better than that. They're supercharged because they enable conversation. And if you've got analytics installed on your website or blog, like Google Analytics, you can tell how people are engaging. And you can ask people what they think. You can be really direct with people. And we used to not even know if people read our brochures. We certainly didn't know what they thought about them. So this is pretty exciting stuff, really. And again, you want to think about what's in it for me. When I say what's in it for me, I mean what's in it for your constituent. You always have to be thinking about what questions do they have? What needs can I help them with? And that's the kind of content that you want to share. Content is really king. It's probably the most important way that you can keep your social media plan on track. Have a plan, dive that plan, and then you're going to get someplace that's much deeper than where you have been. And you know, another thing is to keep a running content ideas file. Every time that something comes to you, just write it down on a scrap of paper and then put it in a file or type it onto a notepad or something like that, so that when you do sit down with that specific time that you've scheduled to produce content, all your ideas are there. And then finally, make a content calendar. There's several templates in my resource guide that will help you do that. But basically what you're looking is to plug in all your saved up ideas according to things that are happening in the world at that time. It might be your world, it might be that you've got an event coming up or a campaign coming up, or it might be the larger world out there. So for example, it might be something like July 1st, blog post tied to Independence Day, author, Sue, title, well, I don't know what the title is. The content details, the kinds of things that are going to relate Independence Day to your mission. The due date, who you've assigned it to. And then you take it out to the other channels. You'll say, tweet this link 3 times a day, July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Post this link to Facebook 2 times a day. So that's your content calendar. Now I want to talk about Basic Marketing 101, and this is where we kind of get into the common sense part of this. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the marketing matrix, but this is a pretty tried and true paradigm for making sure that you're putting your money and your time into the smartest places. So you essentially have new products and old products, new markets and old markets. And you want to stay as much as possible in the upper left-hand corner, or in the top right hand or the lower left hand. This is where you're penetrating your markets or you're developing your existing products or existing markets. When you get into diversification territory, new products and new markets, that's where you're at the highest risk. You're taking away resources from other things that you know work, and you're kind of out there a little bit on a wing and a prayer. And so, for example, let's say that you decide in a brainstorming session. In brainstorming sessions, I found people always go to diversification because it's the most fun. So that you say, well, we're going to start a Pinterest board. Okay, well, that's a new product. And then you say, well, we're going to just wait for people to find our pins. We think the mommies will find them. Well, that's not a really good strategy. It's a pretty risky strategy. So same thing if you say, well, we're going to do Google+, and we're going to go on there, we're going to create some circles, and then we're going to wait for people to add us in. Again, that's not putting you very much in control. So take a moment to clear your mind when this kind of thing happens and get clarity around your business goals. You know, what are you really trying to do? Are you trying to get people to engage with your programs more deeply? Do you want more people to sign your petitions? Do you want more people to come to your event? Or do you want to really add some new markets that you're not reaching now. When you've done your persona brainstorming, you figured out, hey, there's this whole persona, Jane, that we don't have a lot of Janes around here, but it seems like they would be really interesting. What do we have that might be interesting to Jane? This is when you want to start building your promotion strategy. And again, a lot of you said you're working on building your email list. It's the #1 online media tool. It's the most direct way you communicate with folks. And the thing that is going to hold you back in your marketing and fundraising efforts the most is lack of prospects. And I work with organizations all the time who have developed the best campaigns. I mean, they're really compelling. And then I say, how big is your list? And they tell me how small it is, and I get really sad. So you have to have a way to systematically capture leads onto your email subscribe list. And this starts with having a really well-designed opt-in form on your website or blog, usually up at the top, front and center, maybe the right-hand side. Usually, much like the strategy for a donation button, you want a contrasting color that doesn't match anything else on your website so that people really see it. And then you want to give them a reason to join the list. Just join our email list, like this says right here, is not enough. What are they going to get from you? Are they going to hear about breaking news stories? Are they going to hear about how their money is working to help people? Are they going to hear about tips and tools that can help them in their lives? Make sure that it seems like there's something really good that they're going to get from this. And then promote the link to your subscribe page where your folks are hanging out. So if you've got people coming to you from Facebook or Twitter or Google+, if your subscribe box is not super compelling when they come, you've kind of wasted your opportunity. And in fact, there's data from Social Media Examiner that says that 70% of people who come, or 80% of people who come to your website or blog for the first time are not going to come again, which is really, really sad. So again, you know, if you're promoting in channels where people aren't, if you've got just Facebook because you think Facebook is the biggest and so that's the only thing that you're going to do, and I hear a lot of people say that, well, great, except your constituents might not be there. Like if 50% of your constituents are professionals and their favorite channel is LinkedIn and only 25% of your constituents are on Facebook, what does that tell you? So one thing that you can do is just a simple survey of your current mailing list. And you can use Google Docs for this, you can use SurveyMonkey, and just ask them one simple multiple choice question of what channels they use and get a good idea of where you think you should be to get more folks like them. Okay. Action. How do you inspire active engagement and get away from this transactional stuff of people giving you the thumbs up? You know, I'm sure that if you were meeting somebody face to face and asked them for a gift and they just gave you a thumbs up, you would not be too delighted. So that's kind of old, likes and follows. It's very passive and it's kind of this push broadcasting where you kind of broadcast out wherever you can think of and say like us. It doesn't get you very far. The new way is to go for a specific desired action response and always know what that is before you launch anything. And then include in whatever you launch a specific call to action. People really do want to know what you want them to do with it. They don't really like it that much when you send out an inspirational quote and it just hangs there. I mean, at least say, do you have other quotes that inspire you? Maybe pin them to our Pinterest board. You know, they want to know why you put that out there. The other thing is to think about who your influences are and actively feed those people. And some of your influencers may be obvious to you. They're the people who are on your board, your volunteers, your donors, the people that already like you. Some of your influencers may be people you're not thinking about, and they may be people that other people go to for advice. These are the people that Malcolm Gladwell talks about in The Tipping Point, who he calls the mavens and the connectors. So for example, if you're a child-serving organization, mommy bloggers might be your influencers. If you can give them tips about how to get your kid ready for school in the morning or how to get your kid to eat healthy, they might promote that and share that. And you could get a much larger audience of people who see, hey, this is an organization that really knows what's important to me and knows how to take care of kids. Same thing if you're a hunger organization. Maybe your influencers are food bloggers. Maybe they are health and fitness bloggers. You can get creative and really start to figure out who these people are, and if you can get into that world of influencers, you're going to really enhance the number of ambassadors that you have sharing to a larger audience. Let's see. What you think is happening on social media is not necessarily what is happening. So again, there's been some research by Social Media Today on social behavior. There's a thing called the Big Game, which is an infographic I've given you in my resource card. And it found that a lot of stuff is really counterintuitive to what we think. Or maybe it's intuitive to you, but 75% of older users are sharing on email. And 60% of younger users are sharing on Facebook. You really have to test this for yourself, but overall, in all demographics, the average is that over the past year, sharing on social networks has gone up by about 37%. So find out where your audience hangs, because you're not going to engage much with people if they're not your people. And I'll just tell you like a quick little story. When I was working at the San Francisco Food Bank, we did this really fun thing, which was a game on farm, Zynga, and it was a Facebook game, and people could buy a chest that fed people, and that helped them on their journey. And we got, some money each time people bought that chest, and we thought, oh, well, we'll try this. And we did it over a weekend, Thanksgiving weekend, and we were just completely blown away. We got 18,000 people to buy that chest. Well, cool, that was really cool. But it was a total example of a transactional type of thing, because none of those people ever engaged with us again. The lion's share of them were out of the country, and we were a local food bank. So if we had decided, oh, this was a great success, we're going to put all of our energy into doing this again, it wouldn't have been a good decision, because all of our energy would have been getting people in the door that were going to flow right back out the door again. While you're thinking about being social, remember not to be anti-social. The zen of your social media should be, unless you intend to engage with people, don't do it. That's exactly what I was talking about, where I was saying it's tempting to just go there. People are saying, hey, let's do Pinterest. It's really fun. Let's put up some Pinterest boards. And I think you should do Pinterest. I love Pinterest for nonprofits. But if you're not going to have the time to engage with people there and post there regularly, then you're not ready for it yet. The principle of reciprocity, this value for value exchange that we talk about all the time in fundraising, the donor gives you something of value, you give them something of value back. It really applies in spades to social media. If you're just telling folks stuff, if you're just broadcasting and spitting stuff, it's a monologue. But if you're sharing and you're being useful to people and you're creating emotional experiences, then you're giving. So don't ignore their actions. If they comment, comment back. If they share, thank them for sharing. It's really, again, common sense. It's what Miss Manners taught us to do, to say thank you and to acknowledge when people are there for us. And that's really, that intentional type of engagement with people is really what makes social media worth it. It's just a tool. And if you don't use it properly with care and with purpose, it's just not going to do that much for you. Sadly, many businesses and nonprofits look at social media as a money-only or a money-first channel. And if it's not going to bring in money, then why do it? I would recommend tempering your expectations that social is about fundraising and focus instead on being a really useful resource to people and being entertaining to people. If you make people happy with your content, then donations are going to come because they'll be interested in you. So now some of the fun part. This is where I like to get creative to inspire people. And my newest favorite thing is Pinterest. I'm working on a Pinterest guide for you, which I'll have on my website soon. And I do have a whole article of 24 ways to get creative with Pinterest that is in the guide that you can look at. But visual is a trend online and in nonprofit. They do say a picture is worth 1,000 words. So social networks are becoming more visual. And what I love here is this example from Goodwill where they're keying into the demographic on Pinterest, which likes do-it-yourself craft projects, and they have a whole board dedicated to how you can do craft projects with stuff that's recycled from Goodwill. The other example is from Surfrider. It's from a food board. Now, you know, they're a saving ocean type of organization, so they don't have much to do about food, but food and recipes are really popular on Pinterest. So they came up with some themed recipes that are kind of fun. The other thing that I really, really love, because one of the most important things for donor retention, we know, is a strong acknowledgement program. And as many ways as you can get creative thanking people, you should do it. And there's now this cool thing that you can do on Twitter using this tool called VSnap, which I've got a link for you to in the resource guide. And you can record a 60-second personalized video that thanks somebody specifically for something that they did on Twitter. So you can use this with some of your awesome donors, your awesome volunteers. It doesn't take long at all. And you could even end up taking these little videos that you make and putting them onto a thank you board on Pinterest. And that would be, I think, a lot of fun and kind of inspiring to people as well. Here's another thing. A lot of people tell me, well, we just don't have any images. We're not an image-based nonprofit. I challenge that. I think that you can find images, but if you want to talk about that with me, be happy to talk to you. But here's this new thing that I found that I can't stop playing with, which is called Quozio. I've got a link to that for you as well in the resource guide. And it turns words into images in seconds, and there's different backgrounds you can use. So you can put that up on a Pinterest board. And I took this great quote from Brian Solis. And if you haven't read Brian Solis, I really encourage you to do it. He's written this book, The End of Business as Usual. And he talks about why it really is a new era in marketing and how things have changed so much. I really say that fundraising and nonprofit marketing has changed more in the past 5 years than in the previous 50. Social media is not a game played from the sidelines. Those who participate will succeed. Everyone else will either have to catch up or miss the game altogether. Some more creative things that you can do. You can start particular Google Plus circles around areas of common interest. So if you have people who support your senior services programs, you can create a Google Plus circle for them. If you have another group that supports your children's services, you can create a community for them. And then from time to time on your content calendar, you can share the latest update about our, bullying program with the children's circle. And that way you can be a lot more personal, and that's what people like. They like to feel like you know them and that you're not just blasting stuff out that's cookie cutter and not related to them. If they know that the stuff you send them is going to be relevant and meaningful, they're going to be much more likely to open it and engage with it and share it. You can do personalization in LinkedIn groups as well. You can join groups that already exist, and you can launch discussions and contribute, and this is a really good way to sort of demonstrate your expertise in a certain area so that people start to come to you for that and you become known for that. You can also launch your own group and try to get people to join your group that's around, whatever it is that you're doing. It could be climate change, for example. Contests are really fun, and if you want to put some contests on your blog or on your Twitter, one of the groups that I work with, One Justice, did on their blog a post where you named your favorite Justice movie, and they then gave a water bottle to the one that won, and it was their most shared blog post ever. So they then did some more where it was name your favorite Justice song and name your favorite Justice quote. And so it's, it's tangentially tied to their mission, but it's a way that people kind of got to get engaged together, and then it started a dialogue about the justice themes in those movies and how that related to what they were doing currently with their mission. The other thing is telling stories. People love stories, so try to, when you get your social media task force together, always have a time on your agenda where you ask people to tell any stories that they've got, and then figure out a way that you can maybe write that into a blog post and then share it on your other networks. Resources. Okay, we're going to have to go really quick, but how do you get the resources you need? Where do you find them? They really are preconditioned to getting into the social media game. Yes, if you're wondering, I'm a San Francisco Giants fan. Go Giants. So you do need nine players on each side and a bat and a ball to play. That's kind of the minimum. So you have to figure out, well, what's the bare minimum that we need? And just like with Goldilocks, you want to get it just right. Not too much, not too little. Social media is like a puppy. If you're going to get one, you got to care for it or it's going to die. You don't want to overdo it. You don't want to start adopting all sorts of channels that you can't care for if you can't barely care for the ones that you've got. And so, you want to strike a balance. And social media is not free. It sounds like a lot of your leadership understands that it's not free. But it does take human power, and it does take your time. And it's not something that you can just really add on to everything else that you're already doing. If you have a Facebook profile, but you don't have the time to use it, it's kind of like having a lawnmower and never mowing the lawn. It just does nothing for you. So don't jump onto every new platform unless you've got the resources and a plan in place to keep the content fresh and your fans engaged. It's better to do a few channels really well than to do a half-assed job in a lot of places. You really don't need to go crazy with this. You don't necessarily need a full-time person, but you need some dedicated hours. Nothing takes care of itself. And this is a mantra that I borrowed from Sonia Simone of Copyblogger. She calls it Sonia's Law. Nothing takes care of itself. She says that 90% of websites are wretched, 90% of Facebook pages are wretched, 90% of content marketing programs are wretched, 90% of social media-based customer support is wretched. You need to have help from people who actually have decided, I'm going to become something of an expert in this, I'm going to know what I'm doing here, and I'm going to figure out how many hours per week I need to put into this, and then get buy-in from your leadership that in fact this is in your job description, and this is how many hours you're going to put in. Here is one suggestion. I've got a couple of other charts from how small businesses are doing this to give you some other suggestions, but you can see you're going to need a certain amount of hours to create the content, to do all the web-based stuff that you need to do, post to the social media tools, respond to any comments and questions you get, surf the web to see what new stuff is out there that maybe you want to be doing, and then measure. You really do need to be measuring what you're doing, because otherwise you're going to keep doing stuff that's getting you nowhere, and that's just not working smart. Measuring SMART. SMART objectives are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. Specific can be any of these metrics you see here. We're going fast here. You're going to get these slides at the end, so don't worry about that. But one of the main metrics is how many leads are you generating? How many people are converting to subscribers? How many people are coming to an event? How many people are signing a petition? How many people are actually taking the actions that you want them to do? Measure for these meaningful kinds of events. And measure the right things, the long-term things, not just the short-term things. So short-term things are like they liked us, they retweeted us, they viewed us. Long-term things, again, there's actually a result that we wanted, and it's a kind of result that we could work with. We could get this person to become a loyal person with us over a period of time. Start small. Come up with a project where you can measure something easily, whether it's conversions to subscribers or shares or responses to whatever your call to action was. And look for a realistic return on investment. If you're thinking that measuring return on investment has to be strictly financial, stop. The real return on investment in nonprofit is what I call a return on interesting. And it's going to increase the probability that you're going to get sales and donations down the line. You're really investing in a journey to get folks aware of you, interested in you, engaged with you, and ultimately invested. And if you're interesting, they will engage with you. The donations will come. And again, creating interesting content requires knowing your target really well. And then you want this to be time-saving. Measurement should save you time. So again, don't waste energy measuring things that don't get results, like likes and follows. That just shows that you're busy, but it doesn't show that you're smart. You want to measure stuff that's going to get you better results. Takeaways. Hop on board. It looks like a lot of you already are. Your prospects are there. Technology, just a tool. So you want to use it to deliver value and to connect with people. Constituent-centered. Look into their eyes. What's in it for them, not just your own mirror. Shaquille O'Neal's mantra for social media: 60% to make you laugh, 30% to inspire you, 10% to let you know about the product. So if you're out there and 90% of your stuff is just all about you, it's not engaging. Engage to inspire action. Stop winging it. Learn about your constituents. Invest in the resources you need. Put together a plan. Put together a team. Measure. And don't get discouraged, because if you do all of this and you find at the end of the day that only 10% of people seem to do anything, that does not mean you're a failure. That's actually the norm, according to Forrester research. So your job is just to be thoughtful every step of the way so that you can reduce barriers to action and make it really easy for people, make it entertaining, make it meaningful, make it really satisfying for them to engage. So thank you all. I see my last slide is missing, but if I could say one last thing from Peter Drucker. He says all good ideas are meaningless until they degenerate into work. And it really is work. There's not a silver bullet. You do have to have an integrated strategy that's directed towards a goal that works for you and a goal that works for your constituents. You do need to implement consistently and thoughtfully. And you do need to measure so that you know you're doing the right things and that you can revise your strategy later on. Again, thank you. Thank you to our sponsor. Thank you, Jamie. And it's been great having this time together with you. I hope you will download the Hop on Board Social Media Guide. Let me know if you find it useful or if you need any help in going through it.
Thank you, Claire. Fantastic webinar, as always. There were a few questions, but we didn't get a chance to answer them. Claire will be receiving those questions in the mail, and you can also reach her by her email. Claire, could you let everybody know what your email address is so they can send you their questions?
Sure. It's CAxelrad, AXELRAD, at alumni.princeton.edu.
Fantastic, great. And everyone will also receive a link to download Claire's resource guide about an hour after the webinar. You can see our upcoming webinars on the screen right now. Please join us for them. We have some great ones coming up. You'll also be asked to take a post-event survey when you close out of the webinar. So we please ask that you give us your feedback and let Claire and let Nonprofit Webinars know how we're all doing. Thank you again, Claire, for having me. We were fantastic as always. Any last words?
Nope, just go do it. Nike philosophy. Just do it.
Great. Thank you, everyone, and have a fantastic day.